All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. Tonight for us here in the U.S., today for people in APAC that are joining us here. Today we are going to cover network license server setup and troubleshooting. Just want to introduce our presenters we have for you here. I'm Jeremy Hansen. I'm going to be your host today, and our presenter today is going to be Byron Morales. We are both from the installation and licensing team here at Autodesk. And Byron, if you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So just want to give you a little heads up about what the format's going to be. We're going to try to build your up and ready knowledge. So basically that just means that, ready to get your Autodesk software installed and ready to use. Like I said, we have a presenter and a moderator. I'll be the moderator. I'll be monitoring the questions. If you have any questions, there's a questions section there in your GoToWebinar window. Just go ahead and add any questions there that you have during the webinar. I'll try to answer those during the presentation part, and we'll also try to cover as many as we can during the Q&A session at the end. So there will be a 30-minute, approximately 30-minute presentation, followed by the approximately 30-minute Q&A session at the end of things. Go ahead and go on to the next slide if you can, Byron. And just want to give you a heads up about upcoming webinar we have. So today we're doing the network license server setup and troubleshooting. We have the PowerPoint slide deck is up at that URL there. So it's autodesk.box.com/APAC up and ready IQ2. So it's up there right now if you want to go get it and follow along. We'll also have that link up at the end on a slide toward the end here that you can see if you want to just get it toward the end of the webinar. And then coming up on February 13, I'll be doing our third APAC installation and licensing webinar regarding Autodesk network license files. So today we kind of show how to set everything up, and then on February 17 we'll cover how to set up your license file, how to read all the stuff in there and all that good stuff. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, so just want to make you aware of the answer day we have coming up for Inventor before we get into the meat of today's webinar. So we've had a few answer days in the past. We had one for AutoCAD and one for Revit, and now we're going to do one for Inventor. So basically what this is, it's where you can go into the Autodesk forum, the Inventor forum, and we have a huge team of people that's going to be monitoring the forum that day. Just specifically to answer any Inventor-related questions that you may have. So it's going to be on January 27, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time. So I know for a lot of you in Asia, that's going to be largely during your nighttime, but it will continue on into your morning, maybe early afternoon also. So hopefully you can find some time to get in there. If you have any Inventor-related questions, this is a great time to get those answered. And we've had really great turnouts for the ones so far. So hopefully you can find some time to get in there and answer any questions you may have about Inventor. So, all right, without further ado, I will turn things over to Byron.
Thank you, Jeremy. Welcome, everyone. And just to make you aware, this YouTube channel has all of our previous webinars, recordings that we've done in the past, and it's a great wealth of knowledge that you can increase your up and ready knowledge here. We have all sorts of topics that we've done. There's over 36 different videos there, and we'll keep adding more as we go along. So thank you for that. So feel free to go through our videos there. So now we're going to talk about network license server setup and troubleshooting. And we have a step-by-step guide on our up and ready blog site, and what you need to do is pretty much 6 steps. You will go and download and install the Network License Manager. You get a license file. You configure the Network License Manager. You make sure the firewalls open on the server and on the client computers. And then you make sure that the client computers can connect to the server. And it's pretty straightforward from there on. But before we go over that, we need to have an overview of the different types of license server systems that you can have. So the 3 types are single server, distributed server, and redundant server. So you can say, Byron, what are those? So the single server, straightforward, one server on your local area network, serving 5 licenses to 5 computers. That is the most commonly used way to set up the Network License Manager. We also have a distributor server where you have two single servers independently. They could be at two separate offices. They could be in the same office. One for the design team and the other one for the engineer. So, depending how you would like to separate the licenses. In this case, for demonstration purposes, we put 3 licenses of AutoCAD and on one server and 2 on the next one. And the client computers can see, if you choose to, can see both license servers. Therefore, if one is already out of licenses, they will go automatically and pull from the second one. Or if you want, you can have them separated. Now, the third one is redundant server. Redundant server, there are 3 servers, but they act as one system. One is the master server. In this configuration, all 3 servers need to be on the same subnet. They need to be started relatively close to each other in time, and the connection between them needs to be very robust. If one of the servers goes down for hardware issues, then the other 2 servers will take over, one of them as the master and the other one as the backup. If 2 servers failed, then your redundant structure is broken and it won't work. The question that we mostly get asked is, so which server setup do you think will give more uptime? And all depends on the situation that you're having. If you have a single office, not that many computers, then the license server setup is the straightforward way to go. If your server, for whatever reason, you simply give us a call at our registration activation line, obtain a new network license file for the new server, and then you'll be up and working. You tell the client computers, hey, server 1 is down, now go to server 2. In a distributor server, if one site is down, the second site is still up because there's a server there. So that at least half of your users will continue to obtain licenses. In a redundant server, if it's a data center where you're holding these servers, and as long as the client computers can connect to the data center, then you're fine. But as soon as you lose connection to the data center, you don't have no more licenses. So it depends on the architecture of your network, which one's going to set up better for you. Like I mentioned before, on the single server, if your server goes down, you obtain a new network license. New server, you set up the network license manager on the new server, and then you point the client computers to the new server, and you'll be up and working. On a on a distributor server where there's multiple servers, if one goes down, the second one is still up and working while you can fix the first one. Either you replace the first one or you get it up and working, whether it's hardware issue, and then you'll be back up. If there's a need for you to change that second server, it will be the same steps as previously described. You get the network license manager working on the second server, get a new network license file for the second server, and then tell the client computers what is the name of that second server. In a redundant server, if the server need to be replaced, you will need to get a new network license file, and the license file for the 3 servers is the same, at least with its MAC addresses there. So now we're going to go more into the in detail on installing the network license manager. But before you set up the network license server, especially if you're going to serve licenses across different organizations, different countries, in the United States, different states, you need to check your license server agreement. Make sure that you don't violate any of the license server agreements that you have in place. And that's to protect you. Okay, so the first step, we need to download and install the Network License Manager. You can download it from the Autodesk.com website. You can also download it from the installation media. It is included when you install the software. That is one of the tools that you're able to install. For previous releases of previous versions of the Autodesk software prior to 2015, you could be running an outdated version of the Network License Manager. Starting on 2015, the Network License Manager needs to be at least 11.12. for 2016 now is 11.12.1.4. So 2 places you can download it from our website or from the installation media. Second, you need to request a license file. The easiest way for you to do that is you can contact us. You can contact our registration activation department. We also have a register1.autodesk.com website where you can go and generate the license file yourself. The information that you're going to need is you're going to need the server name, you're going to need its MAC address, and you're also going to need the serial numbers for the license that you require. Like I mentioned before, if you have multiple serial numbers, multiple suites, then I recommend that you allow us to create the network license file for you. It's a simple text file. Yes, you can append the license files yourself, and on February 17th, we're going to be talking about that more specifically on what is the proper structure of the network license file. But if you have a single, 1 or 2 serial numbers, you're more than welcome to create it yourself, and you just append one license file to the next one on Notepad. Okay, so here's some tips for requesting a license file. Anybody with an account can generate a license file. If you have more than 1 serial number, generate the licenses on the same day. This is very important. If you have multiple serial numbers, it's better to create the license file on the same day, meaning that if you purchase 10 AutoCADs today and you got a license file for it, and next week you get 10 licenses of the building design suite, and you generate a license then, and you simply append the building design suite to your current license file, then the building design suite is going to have a newer date. And when a customer or a client computer opens AutoCAD, it's going to pull a suite license before. And that is because there's 2 different dates on the license file. So we always recommend as a best practice to have the same issued date on the serial number, that you generate the license file on the same date. And we have a website for you. It's a web tool for your convenience. It's called license.com, and you can quickly go there and see what the server name is, the MAC address. You upload your current license file there, and it gives you all this information. It gives you the serial numbers, it gives you the issue dates, how long is it good for, if it expires. This license parser tool, we use it on a daily basis. Here is very, it's a graphical way of looking at the network license file, graphical friendly way of looking at your network license file. Third step, you need to configure your network license manager. And we have a step-by-step guide on how to do that on our website. And we'll go through that, and we have a little video here for you as well so you can look at it. It's very straightforward. We'll give you a light demo here in a few minutes. But once you set up the software, which is pretty straightforward, one thing to note is that the Network License Manager software is not a bandwidth hog application. It's very light, meaning that it can be installed on a client OS, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. It doesn't require to be a server. But because multiple computers are going to be trying to obtain a license from the Network License Manager, therefore we recommend that it's on a server, because servers are usually not turned off at night, or inadvertently turned off when people leave for the day, right? And then the next morning somebody tries to get a license and they server because the computer is turned off. That is the only reason why we recommend it for it to be on a server. But the application itself is very light. It's not very bandwidth intensive. So let's see. The fourth thing, you want to check the firewall both on the server and also on the client computer. On the server, you're opening up the ports 2080 and port range 27,000 through 27,009 for both inbound and outbound TCP traffic. And on the client computer, you can simply try to go obtain a license. If you're not able to, then you can see if your firewall is on the computer. You can do the same setup there, but it's mostly important on the server side. The number one thing that we hear is that it's not getting a license, and then we go, they haven't set up the exceptions on the firewall. So it's very important to to allow that connection to go through. Once again, port range 2080, 27,000 to 27,009. Okay, we do have a very early way to check the if a client computer can obtain or can hit the server on those ports. So you open up a browser, especially Internet Explorer is preferred. You type in http:// the server name :2080, and that will let you know if the client computer can hit the server on that port 2080, right? And if you don't hear a response or a page cannot be displayed, you know the client computer cannot communicate with the server. More likely the issue is the firewall. And now we're going to do a little live demo here. Okay, so here I already went to our up and ready block site, and I say, hey, I want to download the Network License Manager, and it gives me the choices here and the operating systems, right? I have for Windows, for Mac, and for Linux. Tonight's discussion is mainly on Windows. We do have other videos that address the Mac and the Linux environment as well. But today is all about Windows, and you have the IPv4 and IPv6 installers here. And it's important to note that you have to install the IPv4 first. That is the main application. Then you upgrade to IPv6, and we're going to go through that right now. So I have the IPv4 installer here, and if you run it, automatically extracts to see that Autodesk, and it will automatically install as well. So I click next and say yes, I want it for everybody. This is very important, especially when you install it on the server. If you use your own account on the server, you want to set it up for everyone, because otherwise only when you're logged into the server as yourself, you'll be able to use the software. So it's very important that you select everyone there. Right now it's going to install. Okay, and now we have IPv4 already installed on the server. I already have a service here, so for the purpose of this, I'm going to delete it so we can configure it real quick. So I'm going to remove the service. So this is how you will get it, like this. This checkbox is not checked by default, so we recommend that you check it. Okay. Before I upgrade to IPv6, I'm just going to set it up for IPv4, and then I'll show you guys how to upgrade to IPv6. So this is how you set up the server. If at this point you have not requested your network license file, you can come over here and it gives you the server name and it gives you the MAC address. At that point you can contact us, or you can go to the Register Once website and put this information with your serial number, and you'll be able to generate a network license file. So you come over here and now we'll go to Config Services. We recommend that you do not use this default service name. Today we're going to set up the license file that I'm using right now is for Plant Design Suite. So I can say Autodesk 2016 license file if that's the only software that I have, or since Jeremy and I, we sit next to each other and we're always testing our environments, I'm going to be more specific and say Plant Design Suite, right? Plant Design Suite 2016. That way, for my troubleshooting purposes, I know what license I have here. So I'm going to browse to the, let's see if I can expand that. The default location is C Program Files, Autodesk Network License Manager. You put the LMGRD process there, you select it. Then it's going to ask me for the path to the license file. And you can either have it on the same location, or you can create a subfolder. Some of our customers like to create a subfolder and put all their licenses here, right? And we can move all the licenses that I have there for into that folder. In this case, we're using the Plant Design Suite Ultimate 2016 license. And now you create a debug log. Now, doesn't seem like I have one created here. So you can simply create a new license, a new text file. Doesn't like it. Oh, there we go. I have it set up to all files. And I have debug log.txt. And very important that you set this box here. Use a service, a services. This means that every time these two checkboxes need to be checked. Anytime the server reboots, automatically starts up because it is as a service. You don't have to manually do anything. It automatically does it for you. Now you're going to hit Save Service. Yes, I want to save the service. And you can come over here to Start, Stop, and Reread, and you select Start Server. Now it says Server Status Successfully. We're going to go to the Server Status Inquiry tab. And this is where we do most of our troubleshooting. If you have any client computers and saying, hey, I'm not able to obtain a license, or -4 error message when I try to obtain a license, that means -4 means that all the licenses on the server are already in use. So let's say Jeremy's trying to open a license and he's not able to, and says, hey, Byron, why can't I get a license? I can come here and go Perform Status Inquiry. And here it tells me the name of the server. It shows me the location of the license file, and oh, okay, I'm using the Plant Design Suite, and that's the one I want to use. So that's good. It tells me that the license server is up, and the vendor daemon is also up. So that I know that the server is up and working. Then I can come over here, and I can see that I have 1 license issued, 0 in use. For example, if I have 1 license issued and 1 in use, and I can see that another colleague of mine has the software open, but Jeremy needs it, I can go to my other colleague and ask him to log off the software so Jeremy can use it. If you only have 1 license or X amount of licenses, you can see who's using which licenses. In the, as we're showing you that, let me launch AutoCAD, and I'll explain to you what it is that you're going to be able to see. To simply clear this window, you come over here and select Edit, Clear Window, and then you can perform another status inquiry. It still has not pulled a license yet, and I'm going to clear the window. While we're waiting for the software to load, one tab that we do not use on this tool is done by Flexera. It's not an Autodesk tool. We collaborate with Flexera and we use this tool. We don't use server diagnostic tabs. A lot of customers perform a server diagnostics and they get these error messages. This error message, very common, very common, but it's a known error and it can be safely ignored. And the reason for that is we don't use the server diagnostics. The way we format our data file, we don't use this from this. So if you run into any problems with the server itself, we use the Perform Status Inquiry and the log here, the debug log. And here we can see that I started a server. I have not pulled a license yet. So this is a good test for you guys. I did not pull a license from this server. AutoCAD is open. And I still have 1 license available. I know exactly what the reason is. I'm going to explain to you what it is. Remember the distributed license server. Here. This one right here. So right now, my machine is pulling a license for AutoCAD, but it's not pulling it from my own computer because I have the design suite. Right now, I'm pulling a license from Jeremy's computer because he's got a lower license than the Plant Design Suite. Basically, the Autodesk software is going to look for the least expensive license first before it pulls the more expensive license. So right now, if we go to the AutoCAD software, we go to Help, About, Product Information. Do you guys remember the name of my computer? The name of my computer is PET, starts with PET. And look at the license file that it's pulling from, MAC. That is Jeremy's computer, because Jeremy has a product design suite license there. So I have mine set up in a redundant, so where if we cannot pull a license from mine, it's going to pull from Jeremy's, but the software is smart enough that it's going to go and pull the least expensive license first. In this case, it's pulling from Jeremy's server. So how do I force it so it doesn't pull it from Jeremy? Good question. So I'm going to close AutoCAD. And we're going to go over this. I'm sorry, I don't want to go too fast. There's an environment variable where you point the client computers to pull the license. The environment variable, and here's the environment variable. And as you can see, I have Jeremy's server name there. If I pull Jeremy's server name from there, I'm telling it, go to my computer first and be precise on the same computer as the network license manager. Sometimes we have to trick the computer to pull from the loopback address. Not very common, but sometimes we have to, and that's a good workaround. So right now, I'm telling it there's no other server, it's just this computer. Clear the window from there. Okay, now I pull the license now. And if we go and see where did it pull the license from? Still pulling from Jeremy's. Okay, so we don't have that much time. I have to go into the registry and take it out of there. It saves the entry on the registry as well. You should pull it from here. But this is a good test. So now, let's say I'm still not able to get a license from Jeremy's on my computer, and that's because I have IPv4 here. To upgrade to IPv6, we do have a step-by-step guide on how to do that, and it's very simple. Come over here. Okay, it's 5 steps. I download the IPv6 or the newer version. I stop the service. I uninstall Network License Manager. I install the new version, and then I start the license service. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to stop the server. The server has now stopped. Okay. Now I close Network License Manager, and now I can upgrade to IPv6. Running the IPv6 is only going to extract. It's not going to install for me. So the way to upgrade it is you go to the extracted folder, IPv6, and you copy these files here. Control X. You go to C, Program Files, Autodesk Network License Manager, and those 4 files are there. I'm going to paste it in here, and yes, I'm going to move and replace, please, and do this for the next 4 files. And that's all you need to do, and now you have IPv6 installed. But I still need to start the server, so I'm going to go ahead and start the server, and now I'm going to check the status. It tells me that the server and the daemon's up, and it is all looking good now. So that is how you upgrade to IPv6. Once again, if you have any questions, Jeremy's available to answer your questions there on the questions box. I'm going to continue with the presentation. Okay, so what are the top issues that we get, that we receive from our customers on the server side? The ports are blocked. The network administrator has blocked the port range 27,000 to 27,009. We'll need to allow those ports to go through, or if they cannot, absolutely cannot use port 27,000 to 27,009, you have to manually change the server, the license file, so it uses a different port. Right here, you can see that we're using port 27,000 by default. If you need to use port 27,005, for example, you can go ahead and change that on the license file itself. This helps if the licenses are taking a long time to, if the client computers are taking a long time to obtain a license file, you can force it to use, don't use the port range 27,000 to 27,009, specifically pointed to port 27,001 or 27,005. That way the client computer don't have to scan through 9 ports. It's only one port that they're going after. Okay. The second thing is the license server software version is out of date. Like we mentioned before, for the 2015 and 2016 software of Autodesk, you need the latest network license manager software. A lot of our customers, they got a new license file for 2016, but they're not able to get a license. And the first thing is like, well, I'm still able AutoCAD 2014 to load. Why can't I get 2016? And that is because the network license file is, the network license manager version is out of date. The server compatibilities, the new version 11.12 and up only installs on Server 2008 and Server 2012. It no longer supports Server 2003. And another issue is a misconfiguration of an options file. If we have time next webinar, we may go into the options file really briefly. The options file is a way to manage or control the network license usage on the server. You can reclaim unused licenses this way. You can restrict borrowing or the length of time that the clients can borrow a license. By default, if I launch my AutoCAD right now, by default, I can borrow it up to 6 months in advance. But if my laptop gets stolen, or I dropped it in a pool, or I'm out, if for whatever reason I was not able to return that license to the server, that license is in limbo for 6 months. Right at the end of that borrow period, then it gets returned to the server, but it's in limbo in the meantime. So we don't want client computers to automatically default 6 months. We want them to borrow up to a month, depending on your network, maybe 3 months, depending on what kind of projects or where they're going to be located. Realistically, the client computers are going to borrow for the weekend or for a special project or a trip they're doing overseas or whatever they need to for a specific period of time. But we want to be able to control that, not let them have the default. The license file format. If the license file gets formatted or gets changed in a different way, it gives you errors. You cannot change if the server changes the MAC address, you need to get a new license file. If the server changes the name, you can change the name on the license file itself. But if the MAC address changes, if the network card gets replaced, you need to get a new network license file. The old one will not work. We already touched about the issue dates don't match. The client computers will no longer follow the cascading order. Instead, they will follow the date order. Sometimes there's missing information on the license file. If we put an increment as opposed to a package, you only pull in that year. You don't have any of the package. You don't got the previous 3 versions there. So the formatting of the license file is very important. And that's why I was recommending that either if you have 1 or 2 serial numbers, you create it yourself. If you have more than 3 serial numbers, you allow us to create that for you. Okay, from the client computers, you can see earlier, that was a perfect example, right? My client computer is pulling from Jeremy. It's not pulling from my server, right? So then Jeremy is running out of licenses, and he wants to know why. Well, my client computer is pulling from the incorrect server, right? So you want to make sure that they are pulling from the correct server. Okay, so here's the port range, port 2080 and port range 27,000 to 27,009. And let's see. Okay, so very simple. You go to the control panel, Windows Firewall, and you change advanced settings. You go to, remember it's going to be inbound and outbound rule. So let's create them right now. Just quickly, new rule, sports, 2080, comma, space 27,000-27,009. I like to copy this information because we're going to put it later. You want to allow the connection or domain private and public. And you can call it here outbound. No, we're doing inbound right now. Inbound Autodesk. And I also like to put the description here of what I did. So that was the inbound. We do the outbound. New rule. Ports. You still have it saved there. Allow the connection. Outbound Autodesk. And I'm going to show you what I was mentioning earlier. This is from my client computer. It's not the one I'm on right now. And I type in HTTP // the name of the computer, port 2080. This is the proper response. Anywhere along those is the proper response. That means that my laptop, which I'm on right now, can hit my desktop, which has the network license manager. And you want to do that for the port 27,000 as well. If for whatever reason you get page cannot be displayed, then you know that there's a client connection issue at that point. Stop thinking about it. Okay. Talk about this already. You want to make sure which port you're using it's available on the server, and you can also see which port you're using on the license file itself. The license server should say up, vendor name should say up. Older versions will not work for the 2015 or newer software, and we have a step-by-step guide on how to upgrade your license manager there. As I mentioned before, Windows XP, Windows Vista, and Windows Server 2003 are no longer supported to use the software for the newer versions, 11.12 and newer. Okay, if the server name or MAC address has changed, as I said earlier, if the server name has changed, you can edit that on the license file. If the MAC address has changed, you will need to get a new network license file. This is the environment variable that I have set up on my computer. By default, when you install the software, it asks you if it was network or standalone. If it was network, it asks you for the name of the license file. This saves it on the lick file under C program files Autodesk. But if you installed a suite which have 7 or more software, you don't want to go into each one of those lick files and change the new server name. Instead, we recommend that you use the adsflex_license_file environment variable to point into a new server name. So here's some common questions. Customers, right? My laptop is taking 2 licenses. Why is it doing that? Well, if your laptop opens AutoCAD 2015 and AutoCAD 2016, it is pulling 2 licenses. If your laptop is opening Revit 2016 and AutoCAD 2016 and you have a suite software, at that point it should only pull 1 license. But if you use 2 different versions, 2 different year versions, it's going to pull 2 different licenses. Here's what I was talking about, the options file. The borrowed licenses are not available on the server. You need to return them. Inactive licenses, you can use an option file to recall those. Also, you can set up the timeout variable in case you need to reclaim licenses from the client computers. You can set a specific time. I think default's 10 or 15 minutes. That's of inactive computer time. If the customer is still using the keyboard and moving the mouse around, you will not be able to reclaim those licenses. The computer has to be idle before you can reclaim those. Here's more information about the options file. You can restrict borrowing. You can set up groups and users of computers. And we do have more information there. Okay, on our Up and Ready blog site, you're welcome to visit our upandready.typepad.com website. And we do have all the step by step on a guide for both Mac, Windows, and Linux at your servers there. And now we're going to go over to Jeremy and see if there's any questions that we can answer for you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Byron. We actually do have a fair number of pretty nice questions here so far. So if anybody has any questions that you've thought of in the meantime here, go ahead and add them down in the questions section there in your GoToWebinar, and we'll see if we can get to those. We'll cover some that we've gotten here so far, though, first. So start off with, on multiple servers, which serial number do we put on the workstation? So it actually doesn't matter which serial number you use to install the software on the workstation. The server doesn't really care which serial number the software was installed with. It just sees a request for a certain license, and it goes and looks up if it has a license of that type available. I mean, someone could actually bring a computer, someone from a different company could bring their computer to your office, and as long as they point their licpath.lic file to your server, your license server, they could pull a license even though they've installed it with a completely different serial number. So serial number only matters in the license file, really, and so it's up to the licpath.lic file or the ADSK flex _ license file variable as to which server it's going to look to for the license. So serial number doesn't really affect anything at all as far as that goes. Let's see, another question here. All right, so question about, can you flush the license from within LM Tools, so from the client machine? So say someone has a license checked out and you want to force the return of that license from within LM Tools. So say they've stepped away from their computer and it's gone to sleep or whatever, and you can't get in there and have them close it out so that you can free up a license for another person. And unfortunately, no, there isn't really a way to stop that from reactivate or from, can't pull the license back from within LM Tools. I guess you could probably stop the license server. If you go into the Start, Stop, Reread tab, you could do a stop server and then restart it and have the new person launch it immediately. Hopefully they can get in there and pull the license before the other user reestablishes the connection, because there's a little bit of a delay to reestablish the license there, but there's really no way to force a return of the license from within LM Tools. No like return license button or anything cool like that. Would be handy, but they don't give you that option from within LM Tools. All right, there was a question about what's the difference between IPv4 and IPv6. It's actually a pretty good question here. IPv4, that's what most people are used to as far as IP addresses go. It's in the format of something like 192.168.0.1, something like that, just kind of the normal number. And of course, we're running out of those. Everybody has computers all over the place. Everything has its own IP address. So a few years ago, they started phasing in IPv6, and IPv6 uses a hex address instead of just the regular numerals, so it can have way more addresses than IPv4 can. But with LM Tools, you need to have the IPv6 version on installed if you have IPv6 enabled, and most of the newer versions of Windows by default will have IPv6 enabled. There's ways to disable it in Windows so that you could just use the IPv4 version of LM Tools, but if you want to have it enabled or just don't want to go through the work of disabling it, then you'd install both initially the IPv4 one and then install the IPv6 on top of that. So IPv6 is kind of an update to the IPv4 one. So you install the IPv4 one first, and then you install the IPv6 one second. And just in case you're not sure how to tell if you have IPv6 enabled, a good way to do it is if you're on your licensed server, open up a command prompt. Just go to start in the search box, type CMD. That'll bring up a command prompt, and then type in ping and then the name of your licensed server. And if that returns a normal address in the 192.168.0.1 format, then you just have IPv4 and you have IPv6 disabled. If it gives you some weird long thing, a bunch of letters and numbers with colons in between them, or even if it just gives you 2 colons, sometimes it'll show just 2 colons without an actual address there. That means you have IPv6. So that's a good way to test that and know if you need to install the IPv6 version of LM Tools. Let's see, and then a couple questions about borrowing licenses in LM Tools. Now there is a borrowing tab in LM Tools, but we don't use it for Autodesk licenses. Other vendors that use LM Tools use that for some of their stuff, but it's not supported with Autodesk licenses. So there's really no good way to control borrowing from within LM Tools itself. You can see who has licenses borrowed if you go in and do a perform status inquiry on the status tab. It'll list all the users in there who have licenses checked out, and it will have the word linger in parentheses at the end of the line for anybody who has a borrowed license in there. So you can see who has licenses borrowed, and so that at least lets you see who has them, so you can contact them to ask them to return them if you need to, but there's really no way to force it to return the license. We at Autodesk Support, we do have a way that we can kind of clear those out. So if you ever run into a situation where, say someone's borrowed a license for 6 months and their computer gets stolen, or they're out of the office for a long period of time, you really need to have a license returned, you can give us a call or open a case with us, and we can get in there and clear out the borrowing. It clears out the borrowing for everybody, so everybody who had it borrowed will no longer have it borrowed. But at least that is a way to get licenses returned, but there's really no way for you to do it yourself, unfortunately. And had a question about, here's a scenario here. I have 2 servers. I went to install 5 licenses of AutoCAD 2016 on both servers. If server 1 is down, client will take a license on server 2. So it acts like a redundant server, but only have 2 servers. Can I do that? And sort of, yes. I mean, if you have 5 licenses of AutoCAD on each server, that means you need to own 10 licenses. So this would be a distributed model in this case. Redundant model requires 3 servers to set up, so you couldn't do it with just 2 servers. It would choke when you tried starting the server, starting up the thing. It would say it couldn't establish the quorum, the necessary 3 servers in there. So this would be a distributed model, so you'd have half of your licenses on one server and half on the other. You could then configure the either the lick path, the LIC files, or the ADSK flex license file variable on the workstations to point to both of those servers. So whichever one was listed first, it would be the first one it would try to pull a license from, and then whichever was listed second, it would roll over to that one if there's none available on the first server. So in that case, yeah, if one server goes down, you'd still have the 5 available on your second server. So not really a redundant model, it's a distributed model. So you have half your license on each one, but it sort of works as a redundant one, where at least you're not losing all of your licenses if you have one server that goes down. All right, move on to some more. Sorry, I'm going through these quick because we have a lot of questions and we got about 10 minutes left here. So I want to see if we can get in as many as we can. So sorry if I'm talking a little fast here. Let's see, another question. We have 5 AutoCAD and 2 Building Design Suite Premium licenses. Can users have access to AutoCAD from both AutoCAD and Building Design Suite Premium? So yes, actually, so this will follow the cascading sequence. If someone launches AutoCAD, it's gonna first look for an AutoCAD license. If all 5 of those licenses are already being used, it will then cascade down and use the Building Design Suite Premium license if there's a Building Design Suite Premium license available. Now, if someone already has another product from within the suite open, then when they launch AutoCAD, it'll just continue to use that suite license. And likewise, if they have AutoCAD open, and then it's, it would by default try to get an AutoCAD license. So if they have AutoCAD open using an AutoCAD license, but then they also launch a product from Building Design Suite, it's gonna upgrade the license to the Building Design Suite license. It'll release that AutoCAD license back to make it available for the next person to use. However, it's not smart enough where if that user then closes the other product from the suite and just has AutoCAD open, it won't go back down to the AutoCAD license. It'll keep that suite license until they close AutoCAD also and completely release their license. Then they could relaunch AutoCAD and it would pull the AutoCAD license. So it upgrades to a higher license, but it doesn't downgrade to a lower one automatically. Let's see, what else? A lot of them coming in here, so we'll see how many we can get through. So it's a question about whether the products follow the cascading orders from now on. Yeah, they do follow the cascading sequence, and there's a similar question here. Does license date matter in the cascading suite sequence? And it can. The software should always try to follow the cascading sequence, but if you have licenses that have different issue dates in your license file, sometimes that can cause the software to pull a newer license, one of them that's whichever license is issued most recently, even if that license is lower on the cascading sequence than the older license. So if you have like an AutoCAD license and a Building Design Suite license in there, and you launch AutoCAD and your suite license has been issued more recently than the AutoCAD license, it could potentially pull the suite license instead of the AutoCAD license. So always a good idea if you add any more licenses to your license file, just keep the same issue date for all of them. So you'd need to reissue your old licenses also and just kind of create a new license file at that point. It doesn't always cause problems, certainly, but definitely best practice. Try to have all the licenses in your license file have the same issue date in there. Let me see what else we got in here. Looks like we had a question about restricting the license borrowing period, and provided a link to it there in the chat the questions, if anyone's interested. So that's really more, you'd create an options file and set up like a group or whoever. You'd actually do it to, so it applies to everybody. You need to set up a group. I mean, there's a borrow command in there that you would create, but getting into more detail than we really want to cover in this webinar. We actually have a webinar about options files specifically. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you can find a recording of one of the previous webinars we did regarding options files, and that would cover that exactly, all the stuff in detail. All right, let's see here. And question, does the license file also carry info for the network render node, i.e. mental ray node info? Yes, it does. When you get, say, a Maya license, it comes with a certain number of mental ray licenses also, so those just automatically get generated when either we generate the license file for you, or if you go into registeroncetos.com and do it yourself, it'll automatically add their network render licenses in there as well. So all that stuff gets generated at once, and you just throw it all into your license file. All right, we got a few more minutes here. Let's see if there's some more questions we can go through. A question about using register once. Yeah, if for whatever reason you're not able to create your license file on the register once site, you can just call our registration activation team. We posted the number there in the questions panel, so you can find the number there. It's 866-681-4359, obviously in a toll-free number. So you can just call them and they can generate the license file for you if you need it. All right, question about can we read the license details from a client machine, like how many licenses are issued and how many of them are in use? You actually can. If you install LM tools on the workstation, there's a way that you can point it to the license server. Let me see if I can find, we have some instructions up on the Up and Ready site, how you can check the status from a client system. I'm going to see if I can find that link, and I'll post that in the answers if I can find it. If not, I'll post it up on the our box folder. I'll post it there, and we'll see if we can get that link to you for how to check the status from a workstation. All right, we can fit a few more in here. A question on can you use laptops out of the network? So you can, but you need to borrow a license before you go, unless you have VPN. You could connect to VPN and then pull a license, but if you're going to be out of the office with no network connectivity to your license server, you can borrow the license. So, you know, in most of the products, you just launch the product on the laptop before you leave the office. If you go up to the top right corner of the, you know, say AutoCAD, there's a little question mark, and just to the right of that is a down arrow. Click on that, go to About, Autodesk, AutoCAD, whatever version it is, and then click on the Product Information button. There you'll see a Borrow License button. So you click on Borrow License, it pops up a calendar. You select whatever date you want to borrow it until, and then that borrows the license. So that stores the license information in the Windows registry on that laptop, and then it shows in LM Tools on the server that that license is borrowed out to that user on the laptop. So it'll be unavailable for anyone else to use until either the borrow period expires, or you know, if you come back early, you can manually return the borrowed license when you get back in the office if you don't need it anymore at that point. Every time you launch the software, when you have a borrowed license, it pops up a little window telling you that your license is borrowed, and you know, just so you know that you're using a borrowed license. And don't forget about it, and keep it borrowed for, you know, months at a time without realizing it. So that gives you the option to return it on that little window that pops up when you launch the software. Let's see here. Got a few more questions. Getting pretty low on timer, so I think you can fit in maybe one or two more here. There's a question about setting this the license server up on Linux, and we actually do have a recording of a webinar that covers that, specifically covers Linux. I think it's Linux and Mac both in the same one, but it might be two separate ones. I can't remember. But anyway, it's posted there in the questions. If you happen to be doing your license server on Linux, we do have that covered for you. We might be able to fit in one more here. It looks like we just hit 9:30, so I think we probably should end it at this point. Looks like we got most of the questions answered, so that's good. It's a few that we might not be able to get to, but at least we got quite a few of them answered. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining. We had a really good turnout, so good to see. And like I said, we have the slide deck up here at autodesk.box.com/APAC Up and Ready IQ2. And so if you'd like the slide deck, it's nice links to the little step-by-step guide on our Up and Ready site for getting the LM tools set up and configured and all that. So that's pretty handy to have. Go ahead and get it at that address, and we'll see if we can get a few more answers to some of these questions posted up there also. Let's see, anything else? Well, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us. Any last words, Byron?
Thank you very much for coming, and we'll be posting the recording tomorrow, and we'll continue answering your questions here that we haven't answered. But visit our YouTube channel. I put the link up there, and also feel free to use this slide deck for your own purposes as well. Thank you very much for coming.
All right, thanks everyone.